special guest,
Jesse Chandler.
This is the Power Motion Picnic Hour. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Power Motion Picnic Hour. As always, I'm your host, Dave, and as always, with me is your other host,
Trevor.
Hey, Trevor, what's going on?
I'm doing very well, Dave.
Oh, good.
It's great to be here.
I love being here on pod. I'm so excited. It's been I don't know, it's been a little bit too long.
Yeah, it feels like it's been ages in Power Motion Picnic Hours. And yeah, I think we got a lot to talk about. At least that's what we often say.
It's what we always say, whether it's true or not. I feel I feel like last week we had a classic episode where we managed to go on and on about nothing.
About almost nothing. We did disclaim at the start that it was a rather in big weeks. It was not a very big week.
And this was a great week. And maybe we shouldn't measure weeks in size, but just in greatness. And I love this one.
So tell me about that.
I meant this episode, really. We just had, as we heard in our intro, we had a great conversation.
Jesse, it was a fantastic conversation. We appreciate having him on. And yeah, I mean, maybe we should go right to it. What do you think?
Yeah, let's go right to the interview, and then you and I can meet back here on the other side of things and ramble and maybe I'll just do a slow fade out of the episode for like 3 minutes long where the volume goes down until it's over.
We'll talk about, we'll start talking about a host of administrative items and then it'll slowly just fade out.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be a very artistic ending for fans of the more experimental podcast approach that we can't help but being part of.
And I'm even wondering as we're talking about this, if we should maybe spend a little bit more time now. I kind of jumped the gun on like, let's just go right to it. And I think we will very soon, but I did have one thought. We had talked about doing Song of the Week, and it was not a song related, as far as I know, to Jesse in any way, but we were gonna see if Jesse wanted to participate in listening to the Song of the Week and giving thoughts on whether it runs.
But then that never came up in our conversation with him.
It never did. So we can check back with him maybe, but I thought maybe this week, since we're not prepared and don't really have the time to do the Song of the Week, that we could offer it to the listeners.
I love that idea.
And we can maybe do it next week.
Let's do it. So dear listener and Robot in Belgium and other friends scattered throughout the Northeast of America, we would suggest you listen to the song. What's it called? It's by the band Ought. And the song is called Beautiful Blue Sky. And
you did listen to it, Dave. You can you can share thoughts now or next week.
I'll wait till next week. I'll let our listeners go in blind as I did and have the song shock them when it when it appears on their headphones on the treadmill or wherever they run.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't have the experience that I did with Song of the Week artist Field Medic when a bundle of hyacinths came on my run playlist and I tripped over a root and crashed really hard.
I love that sentence out of context. I'm going to isolate that and put it in later into the episode.
But anyway, so we digress. Why don't we jump over to Jesse?
Yeah, let's go to our conversation with Jesse.
This is the Power Motion Picnic Hour.
My name is Jesse Chandler. I'm a musician. I spend most of my time playing in the bands Midlake and Mercury Rev. And I also have a solo project called Pneumatic Tubes. Sorry, my cat just tried to jump on the refrigerator, so there's a commotion. That was audible.
Okay, we welcome cats on this podcast.
Yeah, I didn't hear it, but I'm glad it happened.
I'm sort of afraid he's going to make a cameo, but hopefully
that's fine. Yeah,
that's cool.
We could always edit things out, but also we frequently prefer not to.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and we sometimes have to remind ourselves that if the cat does make an appearance, the listeners will not actually be able to see it.
Right.
By the time they get around. But anyway, so yeah, Jesse, we appreciate you hopping on with us. I guess we we're both fans of your music. I loved Pneumatic Tubes and A Letter from Treetops, and that's sort of based on, is it your childhood and some time spent in the Adirondacks, or could you sort of give us the backstory there?
Yeah, I guess it's sort of, in a way, sort of a convergence of my father's and my childhoods. And he spent a few years going to a summer camp up in the Adirondacks called Camp Treetops. And so some of the sort of like the songs or pieces or whatever you call them are sort of based on that, and like the names reflect that. And then some of them are based on my childhood, where I actually grew up in Woodstock, New York, in the Catskills. So different mountain range, but yeah, just kind of mostly sort of reflecting on childhood and the mountains and that kind of bucolic life, I guess.
It's very cool. And you, so I guess this is primarily a running podcast, but as you can already tell, we frequently go on detours, often music related. So did want to ask you about running though as well. So your dad, you said your dad was a runner, and you were also a pretty big runner. Is that right?
Yeah. So my dad started running in 1978, which is the year I was born. And he actually kept a running journal from the day he started until the day he passed away 5 years ago. So I was able to like start kind of like reading through those journals where it wasn't just, I mean, some of it was just like his mileage for that day or how he felt, or, you know, whatever. But sometimes he would write about like, you know, events that were happening, or, you know, the places he was running in, what he saw, stuff like that. So that was always interesting. But yeah, he was always pretty serious about it, and started doing races in his first year. And he ran, I think he ran 19 marathons, including Boston several times.
That's
so
awesome.
I remember, you know, talking about Heartbreak Hill and all that.
How old is he when he started running?
Are you guys in Boston?
Yeah. I'm in Boston. Dave's in New York City.
Okay. Cool.
And you're down in Austin now, is it?
I'm in Denton, Texas.
Denton. Very cool. The what is that Mountain Goat song? The best heavy metal
ever
band out of Denton.
Death metal.
Death metal.
The best ever death metal band out of Denton.
Denton has like a really rich music history and scene, doesn't it? It's very cool.
Yeah. There was this band, Lift to Experience, out of Denton, and then a band called the Baptist Generals that were signed.
The Baptist Generals, yeah.
Yeah. So I think maybe it used to be a little. I mean, I moved here like 15 years ago, and mostly just, you know, to play with Midlake. But from what I hear, the 90s were kind of a magical time.
I played with a keyboard player once from Denton, and I didn't know he was from Denton until like we were playing in Austin, and I wanted to look him up so I could announce him properly where he was from, and and so I looked it up on it. I think just on his social media, and said Denton. I'm like, that's cool.
Oh, yeah, a keyboard player.
Yeah.
Wonder if I know him.
I'm trying to remember his name.
Would it be Evan Jacobs maybe, or Scott Danbaum?
Scott Danbaum, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. He played in another, like, one of the greatest Denton bands called Centromatic.
Oh, cool. I played at the Continental like a year and a half ago, and Scott played keyboards for us because we left our keyboard player back in New York.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I love Scott. He's a good friend of mine. He's playing Alejandro Escovedo.
Oh, no kidding.
I'm wearing an Alejandro shirt right now.
Alejandro is actually a big part of the podcast because Dave, maybe you could. I think Alejandro is one of the reasons why Dave started training for and running marathons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's true. I've actually told this story a little bit on the podcast, but I never mention people by name. So
that's right.
It's out now, or I'll bleep it in editing. But yeah, we've been friends for a while and collaborated musically a bit over the years. And I think it was, when was it? Summer 2022, he was playing a show in Brooklyn and my band was opening. And after sound check, I was sitting outside, like talking to some of the other people. And he came up and he walked up to me, and like I was wearing like a tank top, and he just looked at me and he was like, "You run?" Which I guess he could tell from looking at my bare shoulders. And and I was like, "Yeah." And then and he was like, "Me too." He's like a big runner, you know? And so
Great. I had no idea.
I didn't either until that moment. And then anyway, so he and I would talk running a bit here and there. And then I'm trying to remember when it was last time. I think last time I was in Austin and we were over at his place in December, and he asked me if I would run a marathon with him.
Wow.
And I said yes. And then I realized I've never run a marathon before. I should probably run another one before that, especially if he's like counting on me to pace him or something.
Yeah, you never know. He might just show up at your door, and be like, "Okay, today's the day."
I think he would smoke me. We had a specific marathon we planned on, but it was last month, and I don't think either of us did it. I know I didn't. But yeah, that is a big part of what got me. I've loved running for a long time, but that's a big part of what got me wanting to do a marathon.
Great.
And you were going to do something up in like Washington State, was it, or something? Like where was the marathon?
It was the Cascade Mountain Express Marathon in Washington State, which was last month.
Last month.
Yeah, last month, and we didn't do it.
There's always next year. There's also always other marathons, or as one of my running friends likes to say about, like, I don't know, whether it's a distance or like a particular route. Like I do more trail running. Dave's more like road running. And, but like, you know, if you miss a race or something, you can always just go back out and do the course. Like it's still there, you know? So there is something special about like the race. Jesse, do you do many races, or you do a lot of running on tour, right? I'd love to hear about that.
To me, like, I mean, it's great that you guys sort of cover music and running, because the two are just, for me, completely interrelated. They always have been. But yeah, I mean, before I expand on that, like it's funny because I was just talking to there's another, actually two of the guys in Midlake are into running, the two Erics, Eric Nicholson and Eric Polito. I was just talking to Eric Nicholson the other day about races, and I haven't done one since I think it was 2011. It was the Lisbon Marathon.
Oh, cool.
And it's like, I almost feel like that Seinfeld episode where I choose not to run, but because that just went so horrifically wrong for me, almost comically wrong.
What happened?
And I was coming off like the previous year, I ran the Dallas half marathon and had like, that was kind of the best race I've ever done. Actually, I've only run maybe 3 or 4 races in my life, but the Dallas half was great. And the reason it went so well for me, which I think I ran it at like 1:37.
Nice.
Fast.
The reason why it went so well was because I needed to pee, like by mile 2. And I was like, oh, I'm doing, obviously they had like stations at every mile. And I was like, well, if I stop, like my time is really great. So that kind of like kept me going. And I was like, well, if I stop, then I'm going to, and then like ran the whole race that way.
Ran through it. Nice.
And then the one after that was like, I was this crazy 5K in Denton, and it was me and this kid in the lead. And I mean, that in those days I was really like trying to go as fast as I could. Now it's now it's more doing it for fun, but and we ended up like I followed, the kid was probably like 12 or 13, and I figured he like knew the route or something, because he took a different turn. I was like, okay, I guess we're going that way. And then we ended up like almost at the interstate, clearly the wrong way. And then like this whole group of like 100 people were I realized were following us. And then we just sort of looked at each other, like shrugged, and just turned around, and then everybody. So it's like the race ended up being like 2.5 miles. As opposed
that's like the life of Brian when he can't get the people to stop following him.
Exactly.
Except higher pace, faster pace. That sounds great.
So then the Lisbon Marathon mishap was that I had been seriously training for that for about 3 months, and I was shooting for 3:20, and I would have gotten it, except at about mile 23, there's just and it's a beautiful race too. It goes through Lisbon, and just, you're on the seaside for a while and like through these old neighborhoods. There, it starts this sort of incline, this uphill for the last, like, until the end. So it's about 5K of uphill. I mean, not too bad, but it's definitely noticeable.
Can
At that
still
point,
can
I
still
was
take a
on-
toll, right?
It's what?
That can still take a toll, right? Even if it's gradual, just
Absolutely. And I'm at mile 23. I was on pace to get the 320, and I just hit this wall, and I just could not move. Like I couldn't even walk. Like I was literally keeled over on the sidewalk, watching, watching like the 320 group pass, and then the 325, and then the it's like the most depressing thing, and I just couldn't even move. And the sort of low point was when this old guy came up, who was probably like, in his late 70s, and just, in this sort of like a thick Portuguese accent, was just like, "Oh, no, you can't sit down. Don't sit down. You do. Don't sit down."
It's too late, man.
So I was literally sitting there for probably about 30 minutes before I got up and just like ended up kind of hobbling to the finish line. I think I ended up at like 4:03.
That's pretty good for taking a 30-minute
that's
break.
really good. Yeah.
But
And the-
and I was so just like completely wrecked after that I just like haven't run anything since then. But I'd like to, and I'm just kind of,
I guess it's well, I mean, a
maybe
couple
that
things.
Cascade one would be good.
Okay, the Cascade one's a great idea, and maybe we should all do it.
I'll run it with you and Alejandro.
Yeah, and Trevor will come too. The four of us will go. It's actually a good idea. And when he suggested it, it's trail race, and the whole thing is like a slight downhill.
Oh, that sounds great.
But yeah, exactly. But not enough, I think, to like kill your quads or something. It's all very gradually downhill the whole time. So it's like, I think it's very popular for people trying to get qualifying times for stuff, but it sounded, when he suggested that to me, I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty great, because I've only completed one marathon now. I did Providence, Rhode Island in May, but yeah, even the slightest little hills of Providence were killer.
How did that go?
I mean, it didn't go fast, but I had a great time. I had a near religious experience, but and I finished.
That's awesome.
I had a, for me at least, I don't know, I wasn't like going for a specific time. I don't run with like a watch or anything. I don't like pace myself that well, but I think I was going for like a sub, I don't know, maybe like a 4:20-ish kind of time, and I didn't get that. But I ran probably a faster than planned first 11, and then had an ugly next 9, and then a respectable last 6.
Yeah, I mean, if I did another race, I would approach it completely differently than I did in 12 years ago or something. Just try to have
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I'd only been awake for like 20 minutes when the race started. So I slammed down a piece of banana bread, and I walked to the starting line. I was staying right near it, and just picked a pace group to run with, like on the fly. I think this one feels good.
Yeah, the other thing I forgot to mention, when in my marathon, I was sick. I was like, this friend of mine, a drummer, like had a cold, and like he's just like, I was like, I think it was like 2 nights before or something. We met some people at a restaurant or a bar or something, and he decided, like, I hadn't seen him in a while, and he decided to give me a big hug and kiss on my neck.
As the Portuguese do.
Yeah. Well, they are pretty affectionate people, but
yeah.
But yeah, but I was like, well, I'm not gonna not run,
I'm here
3 months for this. Yeah. So
yeah. That's the tough, that is a tough thing about races, right? Is like there's very specific day, and you can do work for so long, and then it can go wrong. But a couple of things in hearing you talk about that, in the ultra world, it's actually quite like customary for the longer races for people to sleep, or like what you did would be like a dirt nap, or it can also be called a case of the sits. Like you just get the sits. You just got to take a little sit, and that can be hard to bounce back from. But you finish the race, and that's awesome.
It's
Yeah,
all,
we should totally do Cascade 2024. I think that's a great idea.
we'll put it on the calendar. We'll create a calendar. We'll put it on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Group count. There's another thing that I was wondering at the time, which is that they like at the stations they had this weird, like, it wasn't Gatorade or Powerade or anything. It was like this weird sort of neon green
Ooh.
drink in these little cups, and I felt like, I mean, maybe it was like a European thing or a Portuguese thing, but like it didn't. I remember talking to my dad about it, and he was like, "Yeah, you probably didn't get enough,
Electrolytes or something, or
yeah, or maybe even enough water."
yeah, yeah.
At some
Yeah.
point when I was running Providence, they seemed to run out of water at the tables, and they only had like I think it was Gatorade or something like that. But I don't usually drink Gatorade, you know, right? Unless I'm like
Yeah.
unless I'm in my 20s or college and I have a terrible hangover. Like otherwise I don't really drink Gatorade, and so that doesn't happen much anymore in my 40s. But yeah, that, and I had probably that probably contributed to my bad 9. But eventually at like mile 23 there was a lady with a gallon of water and no cups, and she just poured a bunch of it in my mouth.
Nice.
And yeah, that probably helped account for the strong 6 at the end.
Yeah, I'm bad. I'm really bad with, like, I don't. I'll do, like, if I do a long run, I won't even bring water, or like I don't know. I just if there's if I pass a water fountain, I might drink something.
That's my general approach as well. But I had a I had a rough run last spring where I ran up the Hudson River a lot 'cause I live in Manhattan, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, and it's great. And I did it earlier today, and so I was running, and I was intending on using the water fountains that you run by. But as I got going, I guess it was early in the spring and they weren't turned on yet.
Oh,
So I was like, oh, that's all right, you know, no big deal. And I think I was only going to run 16 miles, which is still a lot. And but I ended up running 20 with no water. And when I got home, I was like shivering, and I was like, oh geez.
that I was just telling this story to someone the other day. Like, that happened to me once too. It was actually when I was training for that marathon. I ran a 20, and I think at that time it was the longest I'd ever run. And I also, I think I didn't drink water, and by the end, like, I mean, I was like maybe half a mile from home,
Yeah.
and my muscles just started like spazzing out, and like I couldn't. I remember I was like also sort of like lying on the ground. I remember like sort of like flagging down a car, and this lady like kind of like slightly opened her window, and I was like, I just live a few blocks from here. Would you be able to drive me home? She's like, well, no, I could call the police for you if you want. Like, if they up. At the time I was thinking like, man, can't believe she won't even get me home. Like, doesn't she
see how crazy I am running up to her window?
Doesn't she know I'm a runner?
Yeah, I know. But like, if you'd seen me then, it was like, you know, like sweaty, disgusting.
Oh yeah.
Bum.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be wrong to like or like she shouldn't feel bad if she like mistook you for somebody on like PCP or something.
Exactly.
Very similar energy.
Yeah.
Bringing those angel dust vibes at mile 20.
I bring those kind of angel dust vibes that most drivers don't like to marathon racing. Oh yeah, I had that. Yeah, I had that feeling when I was crossing like the street 1 block from my house on that run, and I started getting like dizzy, and I was like, oh geez, I gotta. And I was almost home, so it was okay. But I like stumbled into my door, like it's some ridiculous photo finish.
Yeah,
I think it's nice to talk about these, like, you know, a lot of times I think runners, and you know, you love to talk about your achievements, but you know, the times when things go wrong are pretty instructive. And because I recently came off a race, and as you said it, Jesse, like, as I think about it, I've had probably one good race execution too, out of only a handful too, but like one went really well last fall when I was in hindsight much better shape than I was this September for one. But like, yeah, same thing. I just hit a wall like early, and I ended up this was a trail race, so like, you know, walking and hiking parts is acceptable, but I hit a point where I couldn't run at all after like mile 15 of 25. So I ended up just spending a long part of the end of the race just watching people pass me and, you know, say hi to them, wish them luck along the way. And,
It's kind of demoralizing.
but it's just like, oh man,
Not for them
like,
though.
I started off so strong, like those first 15, but you know, you learn a lot. And, you know,
oh, sorry.
no, that's it. I think I want to go back and try again, but that's about it.
I mean, that's the best case is like you know, eventually, you know, after some sort of processing and grieving time, you want to try it again and try to do better. I think that's the best.
Can sort of motivate you.
I was just going to say, I've also in the sort of mishaps category, I've also had some pretty catastrophic, like, you know, before I would carry a phone, you know, to map things out. Like I had some pretty catastrophic, getting lost moments, like over the years, like on tour.
You go running a lot when you're on tour, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my favorite, and that's sort of how I started too.
Do you have a favorite run that you've found on tour, or like a favorite city? Or
it's hard. I mean, I was just in San Francisco and did that run up to the Golden Gate. I've done it like running across the Golden Gate and then to Golden Gate Park before.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I've had some amazing ones like in Iceland. And, there was one in Northern Ireland, Bangor, that I remember being amazing. That kind of like the whole sort of running on tour thing is like you don't really know. It's sort of based on where the tour bus is parked or where your hotel is, or sometimes where the venue is, as far as like where, you know, what's close to run, you know, because you're not going to drive somewhere to run. You're just kind of like
you're there
out the door. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've been in places that, you know, Cincinnati or something, and got horrifically lost and came back as the rest of the band is like in the lobby waiting to leave, and like I finally managed to find my way back.
Yeah, you finally got out of Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly. And that I remember that moment with like I had my nipples were bleeding. The only time that's ever happened to me, and I hear about a lot of runners suffering from that, but it's like I looked pretty horrible.
Wow, you must have gone out for a pretty long run then.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, I don't think I intended to, but
you got sufficiently lost that you were accidentally marathon training.
Yeah, or like there was one time, and I remember trying to run like 6 or 7, and then I ended up running 14 or 15 in London, and it was like a rainstorm, and you know, one of the worst was in I was in Sheffield, UK, and I think I took a wrong turn. I didn't have a phone, and I remember just not like having literally no idea where I was, and I remember just going to I found a grocery store, and I was just standing out there, and I like just kind of asking people if they knew like a venue, because I couldn't even remember the name of the venue.
Yeah.
And so I was asking people if they're like I eventually there was this sort of youngish couple. I was like, do you know any like music venues around here? Like and then they were like, oh, the Lead Mill. And I was like, yes, that's it. And they're like, wait, are you in Midlake? Are you
nice.
And I was like, yes. And like, we're going to the gigs. So we like gave them a ticket or something. And they told me how to get there. It's like,
that's
really cool.
I'm glad that didn't happen to me when I played Sheffield, because if I was running and I asked people that, and they'd be like, oh, the Lead Mill, I'd be like, no, keep naming more. And they probably would not know the place I was playing, and I would never have made it back to whatever the hell place it was that I played.
There was one time in we were playing actually we were playing at the Sydney Opera House, which sounds really
that's very cool.
It was cool. We were playing with the Pixies, and
oh, very cool.
And I did actually like Australia in general is like absolutely incredible place to run. Like Perth, Melbourne, Sydney was like some of my favorite like runs of my entire life. Like I would like, if it weren't so far from everybody, I would like move there. But yeah, I was running in Sydney, and I you know, just kind of like running. I ran like to the Opera House and back, and there's like these amazing parks and trees and everything. You're running along the water, and I just kind of started getting like looks from people, like just sort of weird looks, and I was like, okay, like just starting to get a little paranoid. And then I get back to the hotel, and like I walk in, and the concierge like looks at me as if I'm like a ghost or something. I get in the I get in the elevator to go to my room, which has like mirrors on all the walls, and I realize that like, like when you're running, I mean that usually I wear a headband or hat or something, but like I didn't have one at that time. Like so you're just kind of like, wiping your face, like the sweat and stuff. Like I'll wipe it on my shirt, and I guess like I got a bloody nose or something like that, because like my face, my my entire shirt was just like I looked like like I just murdered somebody,
Yeah.
covered with blood. And it's like, oh my god.
At least you couldn't see the nipple blood because of all the face
Yeah,
blood.
exactly.
Just covering up nicely.
So
The headband is key. I wear a headband every time I run, and if
yeah,
ever I don't have one, it's no good.
it's not pretty.
I definitely need something. Otherwise, it's really hard. Just like sweating so much out of my face and forehead. Like, so curious, I did want to ask you a couple Mid-Lake Mercury Rev related questions, if that's cool. I guess these are probably more standard, more back to your standard podcast, but like Trials of Van Occupanther, incredible. What is it like to play synth on I think Dave and I were listening earlier to We Gathered in Spring, and that just seems like one of the great, like, that just seems like did you play that in Sydney Opera House?
Yeah, I think we probably did. That's we've recently been opening the show with that one for some shows, because it's just kind of,
Nice.
it's a nice sort of, you can sort of draw out that intro with just the two chords. And yeah, it's fun. I mean, of course it's fun. I kind of like will go a little off the wall with the synth solo at the end.
Nice.
Especially we just kind of like extend that
Very
and
cool.
get into weird like sort of froggy
Hells yeah.
territory.
I was just in the studio last week, and my producer engineer had just got like, I don't even know what it's called. I wrote it down and lost where I wrote it. Like this new thing of every kind of like synth like you can imagine that you can then like use in like Pro Tools.
Like a plug-in.
I guess. I'm so done with that stuff. Yeah, but it was amazing. We were like, and he had like a Mellotron.
Nice.
It was, yeah, we were playing with, and there was like a keyboard right there, so we were playing with it. And then there was like, you could punch in like specific. There was like a Pink Floyd plugin, so you could punch in specific Pink Floyd song and get that sound. It was cool. Yeah, I wish I remembered what it was called. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's a listener or not. So if he is, he can maybe
He can maybe
write
clarify.
into our mailbag and clarify
That it is a plugin. Yeah. Nice. And so when did you join either, or when did you join both?
Midlake was around 08, 09. And then I was around for the recording and touring of the Courage of Others album.
Mm-hmm.
And which was when I started running, actually.
Oh, nice.
Tour for that record. And then Mercury Red, like actually, like we put out another record, Antiphon, for Midlake in 2013, and then we're touring through that year in 2014, and then we kind of played this show in Monterey, at, at the festival, and we all sort of thought that at the time we thought it was kind of like the last Midlake show. Like we didn't know if it was going to continue or not. And then literally the following week, I went into the studio with Mercury Rev for the first time. Just sort of started playing with them. So it's kind of like this weird sort of seamless.
That's cool.
Transition. And now, of course, like Midlake's back doing stuff. So kind of like both. Actually, there's a new Mercury Rev record that is finished. I just the other day heard the master. So.
Oh, sick.
Awesome.
Do you like it? Are you happy with how it came out?
Yeah, I am. Like it was, it took a while, because it was like we started recording it in January of 2020.
Wow.
And then just, obviously I had to take a lot of breaks. But yeah, I think it's really cool. It's very, it's kind of wild, intense. Like I'm just amazed at those guys, and like they're sort of like older brothers to me in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm amazed that they can just like continue to push the envelope and do different things, not sort of like pander to expectations, or
Mhm.
they're just
Yeah, for a long time too. A good long a good long
A
run.
good run.
Yeah.
Speaking of, do any of them run?
no.
Do
No
you,
one,
do,
none of that band runs. I'm the only
yeah? Do you ever
yeah.
try to like convert people on the road to running with you, or
I don't know. I was just on I was just on tour with Beth Orton,
uh,
and she, like, before the tour, she was like, what do you like, Jesse, will you teach me to run? And I was I guess so. I don't know, like, I don't, never
yeah,
taught anyone to run, but and we had sort of like toyed with the idea of going to run, but it just kind of never happened. But
yeah,
I think teaching someone to run is really just teaching them that, like, this is what kind of what we try to do on our show a little bit, is like just teach people that running can be like anything, right? Just
yeah.
like get out and move a little bit.
I mean,
That's all it's about.
for me, it's like my sort of meditation or therapy, or
Hmm.
on the road especially. It serves so many purposes. It's like, obviously for fitness, like when we started touring Courage of Others, I weighed like, I think like 225, 230 pounds, and the only thing that really, like, I sort of impetus for running was like the other guys were kind of out there. We were in Europe. They went out running, and I was like, well, I can just, kind of sit around the dressing room and just, I don't know, like, look at my laptop, or just just sit around goofing, where I can actually get out, and so I did, and like, I lost all that weight, lost 75 pounds, and in,
whoa,
in
awesome.
about
Wow.
9 months, running. And so obviously for fitness reasons, and for sightseeing reasons,
Hmm.
and also just for, like, you're either in a tour bus or like traveling or in hotels with these people for 24.
Yeah,
You kind of need at least a little break.
yeah. Instead of, well,
So,
yeah, like the saying is what, like, hurry up and wait. And so
yeah.
why not, instead of hurry up and wait, hurry up and then get lost on the outskirts of Sheffield for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's better. Yeah, it's better than sitting in a dressing room or sitting in a van or whatever.
And so did you the Bobby Gentry album from a few years ago? Were you on that one as well?
Yeah, we were able to get a bunch of great singers on that one.
Hmm.
We all sort of chipped in with, like, people we knew, or yeah, it was a really great. I had a great time just conceiving that, and then the actual recording was so just kind of such a breeze.
Awesome.
I mean,
Awesome.
those guys are just like veterans of recording.
There's like a lot of cool guests.
Do you have a favorite studio you've recorded in?
Probably Sonic Ranch. It's down at the border of Mexico, like literally 2 miles. Like, I would run, and you can. It's kind of heavy, sad, but run to the border wall.
Oh wow.
It's just on this big pecan farm, and it's sort of a series of studios. Yeah, it's just great. Just being there, you stay there. There's people that make these amazing, like, Mexican breakfasts and meals and stuff.
Yeah, I like a studio you can stay at. It's like the opposite of
Yeah,
being on tour. If you're at the studio, you never, in my opinion, you never want to leave. If it's a good one, you never want to leave the studio because it's such a cool, magical place.
totally.
But and I wanted to say just quickly, I hope we didn't offend you by our lack of knowledge. We like to sort of experience things live, and we're clearly fans, but
we, yeah, it's a very Grateful Dead approach to
we sort of take, we like to sort
audio.
of live it in real time. But thank you so much, Jesse. Awesome to connect. Hope we can get to the Cascades, or else run some other time.
This is the Power Motion Picnic Hour.
Wow, thank you again so much, Jesse, for coming on. That was a great talk, and I loved every second of it.
It was amazing. Thank you so much, Jesse. Very cool. I was even just thinking tonight how I'm grateful for the Power Motion Picnic Hour community, and just the spirit of being able to reach out to people that we really don't know beforehand, but we have this common connection in running, maybe music, maybe other aspects of life, but there's kind of a common thread in this community that I think is really cool.
Yeah, the musical world is smaller than one would think, especially like in smaller cities, so like New York is pretty big, and LA and stuff, and probably London too, but Yeah, when you get down into Texas, it's a smaller scene. People tend to know each other.
Yeah, I mean, you and Jesse quickly identified a mutual friendship with.
Scott Danbaum from Denton, Texas, the pride of Denton.
It was very cool that within a few seconds, I think you and Jesse threw an exchange, which included, it was like, the kids game 20 questions or something, but the answer is Scott. And you go through a series of questions, or like you basically ask, is this person from Denton? Are they a keyboardist?
It was like Guess Who, but the Denton edition only about keyboardists.
Only about keyboardists.
Is he wearing a hat?
By the second or third guess, you get to Scott, and that's cool.
Yeah. Well, it turns we probably know the two best keyboard players from Denton, although another one was named, so I guess we know two of the three best keyboard players from Denton, probably.
Jesse did sort of volunteer that he knows several other musician runners. So maybe we can just network into some future special guests.
Yeah, that might, because that's the big crossover of the Venn diagram that is the Power Motion Picnic Hour: running, music,
and runners in the band Midlake.
Yeah, exactly. Non-runners in the band Midlake, I'm sure would be wonderful guests on a different podcast.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Although we could take the Susie Hot Rod approach and try to convince a non-running member to become a runner.
Ooh, that would be a good sort of special edition.
We try to be inclusive, but let us ramble on no further. I think we did say that we had some business to get to, administrative business.
We did. What do you have? I've got maybe an item or two.
I don't know if I have anything. I just know that I love running in my new Mizuno Wave Inspire 19s, and I go crazy for running in them. I just did a nice 10K up the Hudson River and back in them, and I felt great. What did the guy with the poles say to you at the long race?
I feel lightning fast.
Yeah, I felt lightning fast too.
That's awesome. That's a great feeling. That's so great. And I feel like when you go and buy a new pair of shoes, you're like hoping you get there, and sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, but that's awesome that you did.
Yeah.
The
Mizunos. Yeah. 5 out of 5 units. Future sponsor Mizuno.
I think on the last episode you gave 10 out of an unspecified number, but our standard is 5. So I interpreted it as the first 10 out of 5, but you're clarifying, is this a correction segment?
11 out of 11 units. We're going on the Nigel Tufnell scale.
Yes. So percentage wise the same, but it is drastically different nonetheless.
Yeah.
All right. So song of the week, we'll come back to that next week. Again, it's Beautiful Blue Sky by Ott for all the listeners to experience.
I can't wait to share my controversial opinions.
And send it to the mailbag even. I mean, mailbag it, and we can all sort of join on the conversation next week.
Yeah, as we always say, the best way to get in touch with us is to leave it as a comment on one of our photos. Any photo will do. And I'm going to mix it up this week and say, if you want, leave it as a comment on a photo on any other Instagram account and see if it finds its way to us.
See if it finds its way.
Yeah.
Or, for those who have been with us since the beginning, you can also just talk to Dave Rawlings and he'll relay the message.
It'll get to us.
The other standard communication channel. Well, there were a couple big records in running this past week or so. Half marathon for 90-year-old class out of Chicago. Of course, the marathon record. I think there might have been a half in the women's. Just like it felt like a lot of marathon records just got shattered in the last week. And the only thing I could think about is like, how many Bobos did it take to achieve that greatness?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Lot. I think it's lots.
I was thinking about the New York Marathon while I was running today, and I was kind of bummed that I won't be running it. But then I was thinking, like, maybe I'll run to it.
Well, you're going to be there next year. You qualified, right? And
I'll be there in 2024.
As far as you know, there's no cutoff for like.
No, there's not.
You ran 9 and volunteered 1, but the cutoff is this year is at 10.
Yeah, no. Everybody makes it. This ain't Boston. This is a big town. If you're in, it's a bigger city. If you're in, you're in.
if you're in, you're in. How
It's like-
how quaint to be able to like accommodate everybody.
Yeah, it's very cool. That's what New York's all about. It's a melting pot.
And so, I mean, if you've got no business, I guess we can wrap it up. My last question was going to be about the training update for Richmond. I think we can save. We did have a sort of like an early thought and idea around our next race for next year, next sponsored sort of Power Motion Picnic Hour sponsored race. But I think we can share some of those details maybe next time.
Okay, yeah, and I guess my other piece of news is I'm announcing that I'm not going to run the Richmond Marathon. I'm just like, I'm not trained up for it. I've been running as much as I can, but it's just not going to happen.
Well, I think it's.
I was very on the fence.
Thank you for sharing, Dave.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense. I've been so busy in every aspect of my life that I'm not going to kill myself to make things harder. Maybe I'll go out and run a big run that day.
I think we got to pick up on this next week, because I think we've both sort of hit this place where life has overwhelmed our running.
I've just been so busy with it. I wish I could only run, and actually I was on the fence, and the final tie-breaking decision was I found out that a friend of mine and her Pink Floyd cover band is the day of the Richmond Marathon is doing, I think, Dark Side and the Live from Pompeii concert live at the Brooklyn Bowl.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to go to that.
Well, you could run there.
I'll go for a big run that morning, and I'll yeah. And maybe I'll.
I guess you don't want to run there, as Jesse has pointed out. People might mistake you for a PCP fiend.
Well, it's only like 2.5 miles or 3 miles from where I live. So if I run over the Williamsburg Bridge, it'd be a really easy run.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You can do it.
It's cold enough that I could do it without, like, if I go slow without getting too sweaty. If I dress properly,
you can just take the headband off when you get there.
Maybe I will. Maybe I'll do it. I'll go on behalf of the pod, and I'll interview members of the band performing.
Well, I think it's I think a theme, one theme of this episode has just been like sort of an embracing of mishaps and not so great performances. And I think I will say the decision to not do something is I consider that quite admirable. Like sometimes that's the harder decision, right? Yeah.
As Kelvin Kiptum said when he crossed the finish line in 2 hours and 35 seconds in Chicago.
35 seconds, yeah.
He said, "Don't fuck with me, man. I'm illegal and free."
Oh, man.
To bring it all back.
Well, I think we do need listener Dan, if you could just opine on the regional stoner rock of Greater Denton. Would love to hear those thoughts, as well as Jesse's. I meant to ask Jesse about sort of regional stoner rock in the Denton area, because that's a theme from a prior episode, and we know there's that scene there.
And there's probably some great new bands in Denton. So if anyone knows any, hit up the mailbag. We'll make one a song of the week. We don't care.
Yeah, but not you at Texas Pictures, like, for us or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's
not you at spam Texas account, but everyone else.
It has to be a real listener. Only spam robot accounts from Belgium are allowed to spam us.
Those are our only friends.
Yeah,
in the robot world.
Yeah,
so far.
All right. Well, I think we've covered a lot. I think right. This seems like a good place as any to end the episode.
I think so. We might even be able to do some trimming in there. I don't know. What do we usually? Should I just do it?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, do it.
Anything else to add?
I have nothing.
Onward.
This is the Power Motion Picnic Hour, your favorite of the few, with a special guest,
Jesse Chandler.
this is the Power Motion Picnic Hour.
A bundle of hyacinths came on my run playlist, and I tripped over a root and crashed really hard.